don't know exactly what did happen. Nobody's actually looked for what did happen. Why? Well, because they had this canonical story that the Soviets shot all these people in these 3 places, right? And then buried them in 3 nearby places. That's a canonical story. So if you know the answer, you don't look for the solution. You've already got it. Well, you know that can't be true. You know that. The question is, I mean, I show that in my article, and others have said it too in Russian. But what did happen exactly, I'm not sure, except that most likely, certainly a lot of these people were shot by the Germans, okay? I think that the burials at Katyn itself, if you read the German report, the hard evidence all says that the Germans did it. The Germans had to put a spin on it and interview witnesses and all this kind of stuff and change their story. But at other places, we don't really know. We do know that at this one place outside of Tver, Miednaya, where supposedly 6,000 or so POWs are buried, when that was excavated, when there were exhumations done in the early 1990s by Russians as well as Poles, they only found 206 bodies. Now, even if they were all bodies of Poles shot by the Soviets, there are 6,000 and some memorial plaques, supposedly to Polish prisoners of war, buried in that spot. That can't possibly be true. Plus, 2 of those people whose plaques exist at Miednaya were evidence that 2 of those people were shot 15 months, 16 months later, 700 miles away in the Ukraine, came to light in 2011. That's what I wrote my article on. So we know what didn't happen. The canonical narrative, the one that we all hear about, right? The one that's inscribed on the monument in Jersey City, and that's taken for granted, and you're considered a nasty person, not a nice person if you question it. That didn't happen. It could not possibly have happened given the material evidence we have now. But we don't know exactly what happened to each and every one of those people. However, you got to remember this. There are probably, I mean, I've never seen an exact count, 10 million missing people missing in Russia from World War II. I mean, people who were killed but whose graves were never found, of whom 4 to 5 million at least are members of the army, members of the military. All right, we know they're dead, but their bodies have never been recovered. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of mass graves in the former Soviet Union, the vast majority of which have never been excavated, and in my guess, they never will be. And when they are excavated, when a few are excavated, they don't do things like DNA testing. I mean, that's all TV stuff. It's very expensive. You have to go around trying to find people who are relatives. They don't do that. So we really don't know, and I don't think we're ever going to know what happened to each and every one of those people, or of the millions of Soviet citizens that were certainly killed, but whose bodies were never recovered. All right? So there's no reason to think that that's going to ever be the case with the Katyn victims either. By the way, I'm not at all convinced that the Soviets didn't shoot some Poles for some reasons, and I go into that in my article a little bit. It's a little bit speculative. Okay? We really don't have firm evidence about most of this stuff.